Hello, I'm Anna and welcome to the channel. I'm just gonna make this intro real quick, but in this video it's a reading vlog where I decided to give two authors second chances. I picked two of my least favorite recent reads and decided to give those authors, you know, another go, another shot from their backlist. So the first book that I read is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This one is wild. And the second book I read is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, and I had some thoughts on that one. I have some thoughts. Overall though, of course, do all the YouTube things, you know, like, comment, subscribe, but I hope you're having a great day and I hope you enjoy this video. This is my first time starting a video where, like, I'm planning on doing the intro afterwards. So at this point, you know more than I do about this video, but I figured I had to switch some things up a little bit because I tried to do a reading vlog this past week and it really just wasn't good. It ended up being like 5 minutes long total, which it just doesn't work like that. And so what I thought would be so fun is to do a Giving Authors a Second Chance vlog, which you already know from the intro. Remember, I'm learning. The book that I'm starting with is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. Now, the other Alice Feeney that I have consumed has been Rock, Paper, Scissors. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, which I have heard so many people talking about. I rated it 1.25 stars because I honestly just really disliked it. It's a thriller about a couple who goes for like a snowy little getaway in a cabin, and there's some like creepy things and everyone's keeping secrets and nothing's quite as it seems. But I just found it to be one of the books that had too many quote unquote twists that I just didn't find myself interested in. I didn't care about the characters and I was very strongly unimpressed. So it was 1.25 stars, but other people like it, so you can still give it a chance. Honestly, did not like at all. And I feel like I either see people love it or hate it. And unfortunately, I fell on the hate it side. Some things I didn't like about Rock, Paper, Scissors was that sometimes it felt like there were so many small twists going on that I didn't even have time to settle into a twist that just happened before I was already told that like it wasn't true. Didn't really love that. In Rock, Paper, Scissors, there wasn't a single lovable character other than like maybe the dog. But other than that, I just didn't like any of the characters. And I feel like I need to be able to root for somebody. And then also, I feel like the way that the book played out was predictable from just like the very beginning of it. Like, I wasn't actually surprised by anything that happened because everything that happened I had come up with before we reached that point in the book. So it ended up just not, I really didn't love it. I think I gave it 1 star, maybe like 1.5 stars. But what we are doing is giving Miss Alice a second chance. And so I have seen some good things about Daisy Darker, and then I've seen some people just be like, what was that? And I don't know if that's a good reaction or a bad reaction, but that's their reaction. I'm not positive at this point what this book is about, so we can find out together. It says, after years of avoiding one another, Daisy Darker's entire family is assembling for Nana's 80th birthday party in Nana's crumbling Gothic house on a tiny tidal island. They're finally back together one last time, and when the tide comes in, they will be cut off from the rest of the world for 8 hours. The family arrives, each of them harboring secrets. Then, at the stroke of midnight, as a storm rages, Nana is found dead. An hour later, the next family member follows. Trapped on an island where someone is killing them one by one, the Darkers must reckon with their present mystery as well as their past secrets before the tide goes out and all is revealed. And then it says that it has unforgettable twists that will leave readers reeling. So I expect to be reeling by the end of this. I do like the kind of like secluded island vibes, like the fact that that's a house and it's all dark. I think that's cool, and I think maybe it could be done well. It kind of gives similar vibes as The Guest List by Lucy Foley when they were on that like rainy island. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. But I'll get with you once I'm a little bit through the book. We'll give kind of like first impressions, maybe like midway check-ins, and then final wrap-ups. And maybe I'll get more than 5 minutes in the reading vlog that I am doing this time. Alrighty, we're all about the car updates apparently, but I am going to do my little like 100-page check-in to Daisy Darker. To be specific, and am on 132 right now, and I'm not loving it. I'm trying to give it a good shot. The things that I have identified that I do not really love is the narrator's voice. I don't feel like we would hang out if she were real. I find it quite annoying. There's a couple good quotes. It is told in first person, and the narrator is Daisy Darker herself. So I know that I read the summary to you before I started, but just to give like a little bit more context going in, Daisy Darker is the youngest child in her family. She has 2 sisters, divorced parents, and a grandma. And the only one that she has really felt has ever like really liked her, really loved her, has been that grandma. Her grandma lives in this isolated cabin that is called Sea Glass, and it's the kind where when the tide goes up, it is like totally unreachable until the tide comes back down. And so that's kind of the setting that we'll get into. But Daisy was born with a heart defect and has quote unquote died or maybe really died multiple times throughout her life. And so she right now is living longer than she ever was told that she would live. And I believe she's around 29, something like that. Her narration style, as I mentioned, is not my favorite. Is not something I really like. I feel like she just is constantly reminding us that like I am broken, but then she'll also throw in random things in there. I tried to find the quote and I couldn't find it. But there was a quote that was like, and then I joined the others in the room because I'm too dark. I don't trust myself when I'm alone. Like it was something like that was like, oh, okay. Okay, Daisy. But where we jump into the story is that the grandma was told by a fortune teller apparently long ago that she wouldn't live past 80. And so her 80th birthday is coming up, and so she invites the whole family back to Sea Glass, and it's the first time that they've been together in decades at this point because they really don't like each other. They don't get along at all. Really no one in the family does all that much. And the whole family comes, which maybe you can give them some benefit of the doubt and think like, oh, it's grandma's last birthday. But really most of them are very curious about the will and where the money's gonna go from this grandma. When they arrive, we get just like the setup of the family dynamics, and then it's just super dysfunctional. Like I said, nobody likes each other. But then, and this is not a spoiler because it happens like basically right away, and it's also in the summary, they all retreat to their separate rooms for the night to go to sleep and are woken by a scream because Nana has been found dead. And there's like weird kind of clues going on where there was a poem written on the chalkboard, and like Nana had a piece of chalk in her hand, and it's like the poem is like offing people in a certain order, and people do start getting offed in throughout the book. The parts that are making it harder to read right now is the fact that we keep jumping back to the past, back to Daisy's memories, which I think we're doing that so it's like, oh, we get better context for the book or whatever it may be, and really it just like is slow back in the past, and I'm really just more curious. Like I want to know what happens that night. Like that's the part that I am even mildly interested in, and we keep going away from it, and so I keep being bored until we get back to it. But then like whenever we get back to it, it just feels so staged at this current point. Like just now, and I'll see if I can actually find this, they've all been together and they're like talking, like figuring stuff out, and then we get, I might see if I can get a signal on my phone upstairs, maybe it will work up there, says Connor. It won't, says Lily. I don't feel quite right. I'm going to go to my room and try to find my diabetic kit. Nancy nods. I can feel one of my migraines coming. I'm going to get a glass of water and some pills from the kitchen, she says, heading for the door like the rest of them. My mother thinks there's a pill for any and all situations. Well, I might just get a bit of air, I say, not wanting to be left behind. So you can see that they're all like very formulaically going like apart from each other, and I just know what's going to happen. It's like they're all going to be apart and in separate rooms so nobody can actually see each other, and then someone else is going to be dead, or there's going to be some sort of new clue, and then everyone's going to be like, oh, who did it? Who did it? So like I said, still trying to get it the benefit of the doubt and hoping that like maybe it will get better, or that the twist at the end will be like worthwhile, even if it's not a good twist. Like I'm just so curious because I keep hearing people be like, the ending, what the heck? And at this point, I don't know what it looks going to be. My theories right now is, number one, grandma is actually alive and like she is doing this because it seemed like she had some beef with most of the family members except Daisy, and maybe she's orchestrating this. Also, I could see it, even though I feel like it would be hard for Daisy to be the one that's doing it because it's told from first person, so we're in her head the whole time. But then also, why do we throw the line in there? It's like, I don't trust it when I'm by myself. I'm like, I'm too dark. Like, why would she tell us that if that wasn't gonna like lead to anything? So maybe there's a chance that Daisy like blacks out or something and is killing people. I don't know. I feel like the cheap endings would be like, oh, it was just this family member the whole time. I feel like that can't be it since people are shocked. So I'll keep reading, I'll keep giving a chance, and we'll see where it goes from here. Okay, I read a whole lot yesterday. I'm still not quite done with it. I have just under 100 pages left, but I do just want to do a quick update to let you know that I am starting to enjoy it at least a little bit more. I'm not at all in love with it, but I definitely would not be able to put it down at this point because I do want to know what is going to happen, and I do also feel like the tension is building in a way that like I'm actually feeling, and so I actually want to keep turning the pages. So I want to give credit where credit is due, and that is happening. I also feel as though the narration has changed from the beginning of the book. It's still the same person, like nothing I don't think has been supposed to change, but I just feel like the voice that like I'm hearing in my head as I'm reading has changed a whole lot, and I feel like it sounds more mature now and everything, and like this is taking place over the course of a night, so it's not like she's growing up or anything. The thing that is getting me at this point is that it keeps making those little, like, remember the comment I said about how like, you know, I don't want to be alone by myself because I'm too dark, I can't trust myself. There's been more of those being dropped in, and I feel like it's like trying to foreshadow that the main character is having something to do with the killings, because she keeps being like, no one would suspect me. No one gives me credit. Or this line, which I remember I was on the treadmill last night as I was reading this, and I was like trying to remember my head, because page 190, you gotta remember page 190. It's because the chapter literally ends with, but the real Daisy Darker was never quite as sweet or broken as everyone wanted to believe. I have a secret of my own, and some secrets are worth killing to keep. But I feel like the twist can't be that she's the one doing it, because like lines like that would be so obvious going into it. Some secrets are worth killing to keep. Okay, so don't tell us the secret. I don't know. I'm just having mixed feelings, because I feel like it's setting us up to where like, oh, Daisy really is doing it, or like orchestrated it somehow. But also literally the fact that we are in her head, so we are witnessing the night through her eyes, I feel like would make it hard for her to be the one doing the killings, because like how am I in her head, but then like we just skip over the part where she's murdering her family? I don't think that can be it. But I don't know at this point what the shocking twist is going to be, unless it's going to be something disappointing. I don't think anymore that it's the grandma. Like I think it would be such a cool twist if the grandma was really alive, like she like faked her own death and then now she's alive and she's the one killing them all. I think that would be a fun twist. However, I do not think that's going to be it. I think it would not be a fun twist for Daisy to be the one doing it, because like I said, for all the other reasons I just mentioned, it wouldn't make sense. They have like brought in a few side characters kind of late in the book that we're like learning about the side characters, and so maybe it's going to be one of them, but I also feel like there are things that are too obvious with that. For example, there's a man, it's like Connor's dad, and it made comments about how like in the past he used to wear muddy boots and like walk in and leave muddy boot prints on the floor, and how like Daisy's mom would always hate that because she was clean and like he wasn't clean. And there's a scene where they're like coming back inside and all of a sudden there's like muddy boots and muddy boot prints in the hallway. So I feel like that's way too obvious. Like if Connor's dad is going to be the one that is ending up being the person doing it, like you can't have him be the only one who ever wears muddy boots and have muddy boot prints and then just like I'm confused at this point of where it's going to go, but I don't have faith in it being a good twist. But I do really want to keep reading so that I can get to that point. Like I said, I've just under 100 pages, so my goal is like an hour, maybe an hour, I'll have this done. Do I have other things I need to do in my day that I should probably do before finishing this book? Yeah, I do. So I feel like maybe this book honestly deserves at least 1 star just for the fact that I want to finish it, which, considering that Rock Paper Scissors only got 1.5 stars total, I think that means that this one's already taking the lead. But we'll just have to see where we end up. I am so shocked right now. Like shook. The twist was crazy and I did not see it coming. So this book definitely deserves some points for that in a way that Rock Paper Scissors never would have gotten. I don't know at this point what my actual rating for it is going to be, because I feel like I have a lot more processing to do. It definitely can't be a 5 stars just because of how long it took me to get into it, and like I feel bad for all the things I was saying about Daisy earlier and how I didn't like her and everything, but truly, like I didn't like her, and my feelings have changed. But also, like, it can't be 5 stars because I felt that way in the beginning. I feel like I will get into a spoiler section. I'll let you know before that happens though, so that if you want to read the book, you can skip over it so that it's not spoiled for you. But before we get there, just like overall thoughts and feelings, I do think that this is one of the most shocking books that I've read as far as the twist goes. Well, as far as one of the twists goes. So basically in the end, I would say there's about 5 twists that happen in the end, and we'll get into them in the spoiler section. Of the 5 twists that happen in the end, 2 of them were very, very shocking to me, and the other 3 I kind of saw coming, or at least like believed. My issue with it though is that despite being like a really good twist that I never would have seen coming, I don't think I'm convinced of it. I don't think that the book was written in a way where it seemed like that made sense as it were like leading up to it. So shocking ranks high, convincingness of the twist ranks low. The pace of the book ranks low because it really, maybe like 150, page 150 maybe is when I started getting into it. I feel like there's not much more I can say without going into the spoilers, and so what I'm going to do is put like a little word, I'm going to say spoiler right here, so that if you don't want to hear any spoilers, this is your chance to skip until the spoiler word is gone and you'll be good to go. You can read the book and then come back and watch this section. But if you've already read it, or if you just like don't see yourself reading it in the future, then go ahead and stick around now. So basically, all of the summary that I've given you up to this point, the fact that, you know, all the family comes back for grandma's birthday, they're like hoping for her will. You can tell that grandma really doesn't like them. We're from the point of view of Daisy, who's the youngest sister in the crew, and starting at midnight, so like whenever It's Nana's birthday, it's Halloween, striking midnight. First, Nana is found dead. An hour after that, the dad is found dead. An hour after that, the 15-year-old niece, I think she like goes missing or something like that, but it turns out that she had insulin shot between her toes, and so then they were able to get glucagon and were able to like save her basically. The mom of the family is found dead. The middle sister is found dead. So at this point, we only have Daisy, the niece, because she survived, the oldest sister, and this little like family friend named Connor. Those are the only 4 left. Next, Connor dies. And like a lot of this is, I felt the tension as we're going into this. I really did feel the tension. After that, and this is where I think the first twist happens, which I wasn't like, I don't know, the shock factor wasn't like as much there, but like a little bit. The oldest sister, whose name is Rose, dies. She was shot. And Daisy sees that it's the niece. So now they're the only 2 left. Daisy sees that it's the niece that's holding the gun. And so Daisy is like, what the heck? Why did you shoot her? And I guess this kind of goes into it too. So like a few moments before this, Rose, the older sister, like looks at Daisy and says like, I'm going to ask you only one time, do you have something to do with this? And Daisy's like, no, why would you ask that? And then as Rose is like dying, like between when she got shot and when she's dying, I can't get demonetized on the channel because I'm not monetized, but I also don't know how many times I can say this word before it becomes a flag. But as she's dying, she like looks at Daisy and was like, you were never good at lying. But so Daisy, and okay, we're building up to the big part here. So Daisy talks to the niece, Trixie, and she's like, why would you shoot her? What? Did you do all of this? Like, how are you killing these people? And Trixie's like super calm and chill about it. And she's like, I don't know why you always forget this. Like, I tell you this so often. And Daisy is like, what do you mean? What do you tell me so often? And Trixie's like, you're dead, Aunt Daisy. So this whole time, our narrator, Miss Daisy Darker, is dead. She's been a ghost this entire time, which apparently means that her family can't see her or hear her except for Trixie, and Trixie can because like she had a near-death experience once, so now she can see Daisy. But there were times in the book where Daisy talked or like had conversations, like whenever Rose asked her the first time, like, I'm going to ask you just one time, do you have anything to do with this? And Daisy says no. Like, they have that conversation. So that's what I don't get. That's why I feel like it wasn't super convincing. But yeah, so she's like, yeah, you're dead. And then the memories start to come back to Daisy. And it turns out that coming home from a party, the family friend Connor and Daisy's 2 sisters were driving, and Connor was driving drunk, and they hit Daisy when she's on the side of the road. And then they think that she's already dead, and they like don't want Connor to get in trouble for drinking and driving and not having a valid license, and also manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter. And so they throw Daisy off the side of the cliff. But as they throw her off the side of the cliff, she opens her eyes and they see that like she wasn't actually dead. So like they killed her. So that was twist number 1, was that Trixie killed Aunt Rose. Twist number 2 is the fact that Daisy is literally dead, passed away. Twist number 3, she's passed away because her sisters and Connor killed her when she was 13. Twist number 4 comes with the fact Nana is still alive. And see, this one I kind of saw coming because remember I was like, oh, that would be such a good twist. But so yeah, Nana faked her own death and then has been helping Trixie kill the rest of the family members throughout the rest of the story. And basically Nana can't talk to Daisy, but Trixie can like translate for them, and they kind of have a conversation, and Daisy's like, why did you do this? And Nana is like, they tried to lie about your death, because it turns out that every family member knew that the sisters killed Daisy and like never did anything about it. And obviously that just didn't sit right with Nana, especially because Nana liked Daisy the most. And so Nana didn't want any of them getting any of her inheritance, and she said it was like cleaning up litter off the beach before Nana herself died, because Nana was getting older, which is dark, very dark. But then twist number 5 is that Nana poisons herself. And so Nana is drinking tea, and she like, I guess there's poison in the sugar that she's putting in the tea. And so as she is getting like nearer to dying, suddenly she can see Daisy again because Daisy's the ghost. And so they're like able to have this little last moment where Nana is like, oh, I love you. You're so beautiful even now, like be free. And then Nana passes away. So now it's only Trixie and Daisy left, and then it ends with Daisy deciding that like she's gonna write a book to tell her real story, which I guess you can suppose is this book here. Which, okay, I was confused about this part whenever I was getting into it, because it begins with a note from the author's agent, and it says, I received this novel just after Christmas last year. It was wrapped in brown paper, tied with string, and had been hand-delivered to my office in central London. I do not know who by. There was no cover letter, not even a note. Inside the parcel I found a manuscript. Most writers send their work by email these days, and I do not accept unsolicited material, but the name on the title page took my breath away, because the author of this novel has been dead for some time. I have never believed in ghosts, but neither can I offer a rational explanation. I knew the author well enough to know that nobody else could have written this book. After a great deal of consideration, I decided that this was a tale tale that deserved to be told. The publishers of this novel have changed the names of some of the characters for legal reasons, but not one word of the story, if it is a story. I confess I fear that at least some of what you're about to read might be true. So that's at the very beginning, and I was like kind of confused by it, but I guess I didn't think that much about it. Because then like that basically tells us a twist before the thing even starts, that like Daisy is dead, because we know this whole time that the author, like, it's told from the first person's perspective of Daisy. So I don't know. I guess we'll be done with the spoiler section now. Welcome back if you skipped the spoiler section. Overall, the amount of like talking and debriefing that I feel the need to do about this book, I think that like it does feel better than Rock, Paper, Scissors. It definitely, like, giving the author a second chance. I'm glad I did. I'm gonna try to decide what I'm gonna rank this book. I think I might give it a 3. I think I'm gonna give it a 3. Just kind of like an above average, but not necessarily good book, which is double the amount of stars that Rock, Paper, Scissors got. So overall, I don't know if I will rush to pick up any other Alice Feeney books. I guess if she comes out with another one, we can kind of just play it by ear and see from there. But I guess I'm at least glad that I read this one, because it does give me a better impression of her than Rock, Paper, Scissors did. And that is fun when I can't predict a book. So, and scene for Daisy Darker. We're actually back together just the next day. I thought this video could span like weeks or something, but the hold became ready at the library a lot sooner than I thought it would be. So welcome to book number 2 that's included in the second chance vlog. It just occurred to me that I'm going to see if I can find like the clips of me talking about the first books that I read by these authors and include it in the video. So if I did that for Alice Feeney, then the idea came true. But the second book that I'll be reading is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. The first book that I read by Grady Hendrix was The Final Girl Support Group, and coming in next at 2.25 stars, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which I finished on October 14th. This is a book that I thought that I had seen so many people rave about. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I did, and maybe the opinions have just changed. It just really was not good to me. The plot was so fast, and it was the one single fast-paced book I read this month, but the plot was so fast that I felt like it was leaving me behind, where it'd be like 3 different twists would happen in the same page, to where I couldn't even comprehend that they were twists because I was just kind of confused. And I really just didn't like the narrator, just didn't click with her. It is an interesting premise where it's the final girls who are like the last victims of true crime, like serial killers, whatever it may be, like the ones who actually survive and the person gets caught. They're in a support group and they start getting targeted essentially, and so that's what I think. The premise is interesting, but it just wasn't. I did not like it. I believe I also gave it 1.5 stars, and part of this could just be the audience that I am. Like, I maybe wasn't quite looking for exactly what he was trying to write, but also like hearing the reviews of other people who typically do like the types of book that he writes, it doesn't seem like it was actually the best book. But with The Final Girl Support Group, I absolutely despised our main character, like the narrator. I just couldn't stand her voice or her thoughts, or I couldn't. And I get that she was traumatized because she was a final girl, but also like I just couldn't. And then also I feel like the slashing in The Final Girl Support Group just took me by surprise, where maybe it's just common in slashers and I don't read that many slashers, but it was like before I even got to know people, they were killed. So then I was like, well, that didn't do anything for me because they got killed. And then it was like weird to me. A lot of it was weird to me, and I really didn't like it. It moved so fast paced that I feel like it went without me. Like I was like back here trying to like keep up with the plot because the plot just zoomed ahead. So second chance though for Grady Hendrix, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. If I am correct, then this one was written before. So this one's 2020. I believe Final Girl Support Group was either 2021 or 2022. And this one has actually won, oh no it hasn't. So the author, has won the Bram Stoker Award, winning author of My Best Friend's Exorcism. So I guess My Best Friend's Exorcism won the Bram Stoker Award. Maybe I need to read that one, I don't know. But I grabbed this one because I hope, I'm crossing my fingers, I don't know anything about it, I haven't read the summary. I hope it takes place in Georgia. These are peaches. It says there's Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I feel like this could be really good, but I feel like I've also seen reviews of people being disappointed by it, like thinking it's gonna be really good, headed into it. As you can see on the cover though, we have the oranges, and I'm guessing a vampire bit the oranges, and that's why it's bleeding here. But if we look at the summary, okay, this is, in every book we read, no one ever thought anything bad was happening until it was too late. Patricia Campbell's life has never felt smaller. Her husband is a workaholic, her teenage kids have their own lives, her senile mother-in-law needs constant care, and she's always a step behind on her endless to-do list. So far, it could be Finlay Donovan, but I know it's not Finlay Donovan. happen. The only thing keeping her sane is her book club, a close-knit group of Charleston women united by their love of true crime. So South Carolina, not Georgia, but I'll let it slide. At these meetings, they're as likely to talk about the Manson family as they are about their own families. One evening after book club, Patricia is viciously attacked by an elderly neighbor, bringing the neighbor's handsome nephew, James Harris, into her life. James is well-traveled and well-read, and he makes Patricia feel things she hasn't felt in years. But when children on the other side of town go missing, their deaths written off by local police, Patricia has reason to believe James Harris is more of a Bundy than a Brad Pitt. The real problem, James is a monster of a different kind, and Patricia has already invited him in. Little by little, James will insinuate himself into Patricia's life. I didn't know you could use insinuate in that context. James will insinuate himself into Patricia's life and try to take everything she took for granted, including the book club, but she won't surrender without a fight in this blood-soaked tale of neighborly kindness gone wrong. So, I don't know. I feel like the summary doesn't like set me up any type of way. I think it is one that like if it focused on the like suburban moms and true crime and stuff, it could be really good, but I feel like, and this is like again a me thing, maybe more so than the writing thing, so I'll probably have to be good at reflecting between like how much I like it versus how well it's written, but I feel like it's going to be just like bloody and slashy and fast-paced and like the same type of things that Final Girl Support Group was, is what I'm worried about it. This one may take me longer to read because I don't know if I'm only going to read it, just because there's some other books I'm excited for, and this one, since I'm not excited for, it's going to be hard to pick up, but I will update as I'm reading through it. This one's about 400 pages, so it is longer. Fingers crossed Grady Hendrix comes back in my good graces. Okay, 100-page update for A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires while I painfully try to avoid the sun. But yeah, I'm about 100 pages in, just over that right now. And I'm actually surprised that I am a little bit enjoying it. It is kind of interesting. I'm excited to see where it goes. But basically, we're following Patricia, who is this like old Southern, she's not old, but like, I feel like Southern charm type old mom in Charleston, South Carolina. I feel like this is like Finley Donovan, but if it were darker, because so far there's already been like a couple horror scenes that just like have made me like, eee. Including like these are well into the very beginning of the book, so not spoilers, but like including an old lady eating a raccoon carcass, an old lady ripping off the earlobe of our main character, things like that just like are not usually what I'm reading. And so whenever I read like, oh, the raccoon fur between her teeth, and I'm like, ugh. And I think that's usually why I'm not like a horror girly, is because that stuff just like I just don't enjoy it necessarily. But I am proud of myself for kind of challenging myself with this genre here. The thing that is still getting me, and I think this is one of the main reasons why I did not have a pleasant experience with the Final Girl Support Group, is the way that Grady Hendrix writes is like creative, but in a way that I wish there was kind of less going on, because I feel like I can't keep up. And I found a good, like, I think a good paragraph example of that. It's the beginning of chapter 2, so like I said, I'm not spoiling anything for you at all, but the last bell of the day rang somewhere deep inside the bowels of Albemarle Academy, and the double doors opened and disgorged a mob of small children strapped beneath bulging, spine-bending book bags. They hobbled to the carpool area like elderly gnomes, bent double beneath 3-ring binders and social studies books. Patricia saw Corey and pecked the horn. Corey looked up and broke into a loping run that made Patricia's heart hurt. Her daughter slid into the passenger seat, hauling her book bag onto her lap. "Seatbelts," Patricia said, and Corey clicked hers in. "Why are you picking me up?" Corey asked. "I thought we could stop by the Foot Locker and look at cleats," Patricia said. "Didn't you say you needed new ones? Then I was in the mood for TCBY." She felt her daughter begin to glow, and as they drove through the West Ashley Bridge, Corey explained to her mom all the different kinds of cleats the other girls had and why she needed bladed cleats, and how they had to be hard ground cleats and not soft ground cleats, even though they played on grass, because hard ground cleats were faster. When she stopped for breath, Patricia said, "I heard about what happened at recess." So I feel like you can kind of tell just from that paragraph, like, it is creatively written. Like, I kind of enjoy, like, oh, the kids are leaving from the bowels of the academy and like they look like little elderly gnomes walking. Like, it's funny imagery, but also it's like when so many things are imagery right back after back, it's like, how do we just take so many words and run on sentences to say like the children were dismissed from school? So it's things like that where I keep having to pause and kind of catch up and be like, wait, what did they just say? To the point that there is a child who I learned as a child, it's our main character's youngest child, who they call Blue. For the first probably 75 pages of the book, I thought that Blue was the dog. But I think it's because when they introduced Blue, it was kind of like that, where it's like not really saying what it's saying, and so I just got confused. And that could be a me problem. Like, maybe other people will read this book and not be confused at all, but it's just like a giant T on my face. But that's the part that I felt like really lost me in Final Girl Support Group, because I just like couldn't keep up. Like, I just like didn't know what we were doing, what we were talking about. As far as the actual plot so far, it is also a little bit interesting. We haven't really gotten into too much. The thing that is intriguing at this point is that that our main character's husband's mom, who is struggling with some like dementia-like symptoms, has moved into their home. And whenever she sees the neighbor that we read about in the summary, the kind of like suspicious neighbor who can't be out during sunlight, whenever that elderly mom sees the neighbor, she keeps calling him a different name and being like, he's the one who killed my dad. He's the one who killed my dad. And they're chalking it up to like her dementia. My suspicion, though, is that obviously I feel like there's something supernatural going on with the neighbor. I feel like they're chalking this up to dementia, whereas really that mom has like known this neighbor whenever like this mom was younger. But since there is something supernatural, I mean, it says vampires on the front. I don't know for sure if he's a vampire yet. We haven't really gotten to that point. But I think there's the whole thing about like how they live for forever and don't age and all of that. And so I feel like that'll be interesting to see play out, because I think that this mom knows a little more than everybody else, but everybody else just isn't taking her seriously. Sorry for making you watch through this painful sunlight, but I'll update you either when I finish the book, or I feel like it's a long book, so that would be a while, maybe like halfway, 75% update or something like that. I am looking forward to picking it up, and I have felt a little bit spooked a couple of times. I hope the horror doesn't get too bad, but if it does, I'll be a big girl. But I'll see you after I've read more. I have finished the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and I have thoughts, which I guess is good because that's what this video is for. I ended up giving it a 2.5 stars. So while not being the worst book, and I did like enjoy picking it up, I ended up finishing it out on audiobook just because I had a lot that I was doing yesterday and I wanted to be able to get it done. I somewhat enjoyed it, and I feel like I have two different categories of review to talk about. The one thing I want to say is I think it is next to impossible to spoil this book because genuinely nothing really happens that isn't told in the summary. So while nothing will be spoilers, if you want to read this book and you want to go in without knowing anything, I think the only way to really like spoil the book would be like going into like specific horrifying gory scenes that happen, and it would just be giving the play-by-play. But I feel like that was kind of an issue that I had, is that I like to be sort of on the edge of my seat, and there was nothing, like even the scary scenes, you knew exactly what was happening and you knew like, you know, who the bad guy is, whatever. And so it wasn't actually like tense. The tension came from the fact that our main character knew like a little bit before everyone else and was trying to convince everyone else, and so it was kind of this like, oh, will she be able to convince other people of what she knows? That's kind of where the tension was, more so than actually like, oh, what is going on? So I just felt like that was kind of boring to me, and I felt something lacking there. Something else to touch on is that while this isn't the most like horrifying horror thing ever, there definitely are like gruesome, gross descriptions of things, and there's a couple of scenes that are just like creepy crawly and gross. But I also like, I don't have that much of a stomach, and I usually like, I can't handle things all that much, and there probably was just like one scene in the book that I was like really bothered by, and it was because it has to do with a certain type of bug that I just hate. But I feel like the guts and gore weren't as bad as I was like worried they would be, which then makes me wonder if I actually have a stronger stomach than I thought. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out as I read like more horror maybe in the future. I just feel like they didn't add anything to me. It was just like, oh, that was gross for the point of being gross. So like overall, I did enjoy the story a little bit more. I think strictly because of the like kind of suburban setting and like the Charleston, whatever. I think that was interesting. However, qualms that I have, issues that I have. Grady Hendrix is a white man. The main character in this book is a white female, and many of the main characters are females because it is about the women's book club. So starting from like kind of more shallow issues, moving into deeper issues, is that women are not portrayed deeply in here. Like maybe there's like a couple of layers given to the women. Like it's not as bad as it could be, but I do think it is interesting reading a male author's perspective on female relationships that then are not portrayed well. Like the female relationships in here, maybe not the worst portrayal ever, but like it didn't hit right, you know? I'm trying to remember what that test is called. Is it the Bechdel test? The test of like, you know, if female characters, it has to be two female characters who both have names and they have a conversation together that doesn't have anything to do with the male. I don't think this book would pass that. I don't know because I wasn't thinking about it as I wrote it, but pretty much any conversation that the women have together is either about Mr. Mysterious, you know, the bad guy, whatever, or even in their book clubs, it's like they're reading about Ted Bundy or Charles Manson, like they're reading about men. So it felt misogynistic. That being said, I have seen reviews from people that talk about the social commentary that this book gives and how this book just had such great social commentary and really like portrayed how people were treated back in the late 80s, early 90s. And with that, I've seen people cite like that this author really portrays how women were treated and how women weren't taken seriously. And again, I don't think this is a spoiler, but it is just like a small detail about the book, so if you want to skip like 30 seconds, you're welcome to. What really happens in the book is that Patricia, our main character, is just not believed by any of the men. Like, it's just like men have all control in the marriages, to the point where her husband basically like tells her, you are psychiatrically ill. Like, he is a psychiatrist and he's like, here's some medicine because you are going crazy. Like, it's gaslighting to an extreme, but there's no commentary on it. Like, we know that Patricia is right because we're in her head, and there's no commentary. It's like it happens. It's like she's gaslit. Her husband tries to medicate her. Everyone thinks she's crazy. Everyone thinks she lost her mind. Period. End of story. Like, it doesn't like go on to say anything about that or to even be like, you know what I mean? Moving beyond the feminism part of it into the racism part of it, I have seen people say that the social commentary is so good about how black and white relations were in the late 80s, early 90s in like South Carolina, like in the deep South. Why people say that is because in this book, it is black children who go missing first, and it doesn't make the news and no one cares, and so no one like connects it and like figures out what's happening, and no one cares. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, I don't think it could be social commentary to write a book where the white characters don't care what's happening to the black characters, and when Patricia finally finds out and is like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. Like, what do you mean children have died and it hasn't made the newspaper? That is crazy. I'm gonna help you. And then she doesn't. So like, that's not social commentary. That's one white woman finding out the reality of being black in America and being like shocked and heartbroken about it, but then not doing anything and still retreating to her white suburban neighborhood. The portrayal is just like, it's not social commentary. There's another scene where Patricia shows up to Miss Green's house, and Miss Green is a caretaker and housekeeper who works for the white families, and she is black. Patricia goes to her house, and as she like parks her car and is trying to walk up to Miss Green's house, there's teenage boys that meet her and are kind of like intimidating her, whatever, and Patricia's like terrified. She's like, should we call the police? Like, and what they're doing, like, they're just like, you don't belong around here, what are you doing here, you know, turn around. And Miss Green is like, they're wary of strangers being in their neighborhood, like this is their neighborhood and you're in it, so like, no, don't call the police. But Patricia doesn't learn from that. Like, there's no self-reflection, there's no growth. Miss Green as a character, even though she kind of like starts to join and like work with the white book club for a little bit, she's still very much a side character. Like, Mr. Grady Hendrix does not provide social commentary on the relations that are happening. Literally, so we already have like this rich white neighborhood and this like poor black neighborhood. The husbands of the white women are investing in this like developing construction agency. I don't know actually what it was doing, and totally gentrify the black neighborhood, like buy people's homes from them, like buy all the land around, create construction so that the people who are still living there are living with like power saws and jackhammers and cranes all outside their window. That's never commentated on. It's just like, oh, these husbands, yeah, they're kind of trashy men and this is what they're doing, and there's no and. So for all of those reasons, I just didn't enjoy it because I honestly, like, anyone who says like, oh, there's great social commentary in there, I think just like don't believe it, because like I said, it's like looking at a white man's perspective, like whether or not Grady Hendrix, I don't know him as a person, I don't know his personal views and beliefs and, you know, any of that, but also like hearing from the oppressor talk about people who have been oppressed, whether that's people of color or whether that's women or the intersection of both. The commentary is not just like saying the existence of problems, because that's not a surprise for the people who live them. The characters don't end up being like more aware, compassionate people at the end of the book than they were at the beginning of the book. And so while I didn't like hate the story, like I was intrigued, I do think in the future whenever I'm choosing to pick up like more horror or thriller or things like this, I will look for more own voices stories, especially if they're going to address any kind of race relations or any kind of females being less than males, like anything like that. Like I just don't care to read from him in the future with that type of stuff. I didn't know I had that much to say about this book. Am I glad that I gave Grady Hendrix a second try? I think so, because I think I came away being like, okay, so he can at least put a plot together that like kind of intrigues me. Sounds good. But like I said, I don't think I'm planning on picking up any of his future books or like maybe any more of the backlist. Like I feel like, all right, I did too. Now I'm good. I'm done. I guess that concludes today's video though. As a little recap, I gave Miss Alice Feeney and I gave Grady Hendrix a second chance since I read books that I really didn't enjoy from both of them previously. Both of them did end up getting higher rankings in the books than they previously got, but they're definitely not new favorite authors. Pretty successful, maybe kind of second chances. If you'd like any more videos like this in the future, let me know. Or if you have other videos that you'd like to see on this channel, like to see from me, definitely let me know that as well. Obviously, subscribe before you go. Let me know if you have any thoughts on either of the books that I read or either of the two previous books that I had read, because I'm very curious about all of it, about everyone's thoughts, everyone's opinions. Overall though, I will see you next time.